Sign up for the Cigars and Sea Stories monthly giveaway. It's simple. All you need to do is go to cigarsandseastories.com, sign up for our newsletter by clicking subscribe. When you do, you're going to be given a referral link to share with your network. Every time you share, you earn points. Anytime one of your friends subscribes, you earn an extra 5 points. Whoever has the most shares and the most points at the end of the month wins the gift package. So subscribe right now at cigarsandseastories.com.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Cigars and Sea Stories. I am your host, Bennett Tanton, and today we are sitting down with James Overton. James is a veteran of the United States Army, started his career as a Cav Scout, ended up as an MP, got out, went into the security contracting world, and worked for a number of different companies, including Blackwater. Later in his career, he's also an entrepreneur and owns and runs another company, which we talk about in the episode. But he has really gotten into canine handling. And today mainly comes on to talk about different things in the canine handling world and situations and opportunities for veterans within the canine world, talking about American K9 Interdiction. And that's a program that James is in right now. So with no further ado, James Overton. James, welcome to the show, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
So tell us a little about yourself from the beginning.
Oh, geez. Let's see.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Go back as far as you want. You can talk about diapers if you want. Doesn't matter.
All right. Well, my memory is failing as the years pass by. Nice. So I have a very selective memory, it seems. So, so I joined the Army. I had a failed attempt at college. If I'd had it my way, I probably would have gone to the Army straight out of high school, but tried to make everybody happy and tried to go the college route.
Which school?
Old Dominion University.
Nice. Little VA action.
Yeah.
Is that where you grew up, Virginia?
That is the Hampton Roads area. So everybody was surprised that I didn't join the Navy, but I'm not the Navy type. So
no boats for me.
Yeah, no boats for me. So we'll just say that I was more ready socially than I was academically for my first attempt at college. And that's my diplomatic way of saying that I wasted a lot of money and had a good time. I ended up when I'm deciding this was my life. I'm going to do it, what I originally set out to do. So I joined the Army, did my first enlistment was I was a Cav Scout down in Fort Stewart, Georgia. And that was a fun enlistment. When I say fun, it was not.
I don't mean that literally.
No, not literally.
Well, you had to have a little fun in Savannah.
Oh, yeah. Savannah. Well, yeah, on the weekends, I was a bartender. Right. So
so you did have some fun.
We made so much money being lower enlisted when I was in the Army.
Right.
Ended up getting married while I was there to a girl I met in high school. Got off active duty and ended up joining the National Guard up in New York. And it was a program at the time. I'm not sure if they're still doing it these days, but it was called Try One with the Guard. And needless to say, it was 1 year too long in the National Guard.
Try anything with the National Guard is too long.
Yeah, it was. It was a unique experience. So when I joined the National Guard, I ended up reclassed into military police. And so for the most of the year that I was in the New York National Guard, that was our MP school. So it was 2 weekends a month. Funny, we were going to the Rochester Police Department's police academy was where we had our MP school. So it was a little bit different. And then for the last part of that, to finish off MP school, we went for 2 weeks to Fort Dix, New Jersey, which was probably the worst military installation I've ever been to, including overseas. So
Dix is pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So, once I finished MP school, I had about 11, I'd been in National Guard for about 11 months and just finished up, and they're like, all right, it's time for you to re-enlist. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good, man. So I got out. I finished my 1-year contract, and that was about a week and a half before 9/11.
Wow.
So I'll never forget it. I was my full-time job up there. I was a manager at a place called Galleons, which was an outdoor sporting goods store.
Yep.
And so I was doing that full-time. And we decided to move back to Virginia, which is where I'm from. And I'd already sent my wife and kids down. And I'll never forget. I remember watching the trade towers fall, and then my unit was getting activated, and they were sent into the city, but I'd already out processed, and I was like, I can't. I have to.
Sorry.
Yeah, like I got to follow my family, man. Sorry, it's sounds like a cool mission, but no. So ended up moving back here, and then I joined the reserves, and then got activated as an MP. And I was on active duty as a reservist stationed at Fort Eustis in Virginia. I was on active duty for about 2.5 years as a reservist. So that was fun. Got off active duty from that, and then was a DoD police officer for about 7 months before I got recruited to work for Blackwater. And I started working for Blackwater in 2004.
Now, where were you a DoD police officer?
Fort Eustis as well.
Fort Eustis, okay.
Yep. That was even worse than being an
MP. That's a horrible job.
Yeah, it was bad. So I ended up working for Blackwater. Started with them in 2004 and owned their Department of State contract. And I did that for a little over 7 years, 4 years in Iraq and 3 years in Afghanistan. And so that was good times. Met a lot of great guys, made a lot of great contacts. A lot of interesting stories, to say the least. I
bet.
From that time over there.
So give us one. It's called here. Cigars and Sea Stories. And I know there's no oceans in Afghanistan or Iraq.
No.
But yeah.
Yeah. So let's see here. I'm trying to think of a good one. All right. So I'll tell a story about some of the principles that we had to protect. So, the diplomatic mission over there, we were escorting diplomats. I'll keep their names out of it. I'm sure you can probably guess.
It's probably better that way.
It is better that way. Let's just say that it left having protected a lot of those. I'll use the word leaders very lightly. It left a bad taste in my mouth for the whole political process. Republican, Democrat, whatever. I think they're all equally worthless.
Right. I concur. We're of like mind.
So we had one delegation that came over, and they were more concerned with either getting their pictures taken, or there was one who, again, he shall remain nameless, but ran for a certain political office and lost. And then he ended up getting another position with the previous administration. So he came with another delegation, and they were just the sense of entitlement. It was terrible, and the way they treated their security and the way they looked at the soldiers over there was just, one of them made a comment to me saying, "Oh, well, they're fighting the war. I'm just paying for it. I guess they can stay out here." And I'm like, okay.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was. It just left a whole bad taste in my mouth. That was interesting time. And some of them were, they wanted to go swim in the pool behind the presidential palace. They were,
right.
Yeah, but none of them brought bathing suits, and one of our jobs is not just to protect them from danger, but protect them from themselves. So, we had to clear the pool and make sure that, you know how soldiers are. They're going to end up snapping a picture and putting it on, hotornot.com or,
some Facebook or,
right. So we cleared the pool and let them go swim in their tidy whities at the and Saddam's old pool behind the palace there in Baghdad, and it was an interesting time for sure. So everybody hears a lot of stories about Blackwater and all the god awful things we did to people, and it's not exactly how it was made out to be, but it is.
Of course, but it's not. The real truth isn't as sexy.
It's not. And they hung. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the guys from Nassau Square and that whole incident. And
yep,
those guys were hung out to dry. They were phenomenal guys. I went through my initial train up with one of them, and just just great guys, great operators. And it was unfortunate how that whole situation played out.
Yeah.
Hell, we could make an entire podcast about that whole situation.
For sure.
Yeah, it's
and maybe one day we will.
Yeah. It's but hopefully those guys will see justice soon and will be vindicated, and they'll have to get back to their families. So.
Yeah, for sure. Just crazy.
Yeah. So it was a good time over there. Like I said, I met a lot of great guys, and I started a company while I was over there as kind of a hobby, just making my own gear, and it ended up turning into a business here. And so I pushed forward with that for a while, and then
So is that company still exist?
Yeah, it still does.
So give us the plug, man. Shameless product placement, and anything that you want to say about it. It again.
Yeah, so it's a company called High Threat Concealment. Makes a low profile gear for government agencies. That's been the core focus of the company. The company does sell to private individuals as well, but the focus has always been more geared towards low visibility operations, PSD teams, things of that nature. So I started that as kind of a hobby and turned that into a pretty successful business. And then I backed away from that and got into the K9 world. So it's kind of funny how that came along, kind of by accident. I had adopted one of our working dogs that we had when I was in Afghanistan. She'll be 13 this year. She's still pushing strong. But,
what's her name?
Her name's Ada. So she's a Belgian Mal that I had over there. She's about 80 pounds. She's one of our bigger ones that we had over there. And so I was helping some of the local law enforcement guys do active shooter training at one of the amusement parks in the area. And they had it's called the Heroes Challenge. They have it every year. The whole park is shut down, and they have a bunch of different agencies. All the 3-letter agencies come out to play. DOD gets involved a little bit, and it's a huge mass casualty terrorist exercise. So we had 500 role players playing part guests. We had 12 op 4. And then we had basically what the scenario is active shooters come into the park, kill a bunch of people, take hostages, and it's the Chechen terrorists are trying to get their Muslim brothers released from jail, blah, blah, blah. Right. Scenario. And so it's basically just from a start to finish scenario where they have the initial first responders come in, set up a perimeter. They have the SWAT teams come in. And it's a full-scale exercise all the way from first responders transporting wounded to the local ER. The ERs are playing. We had a company called ADS. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those guys. They're one of the big government vendors as far as supplying gear to military and government agencies. Yep. I got them involved to come out, and they brought a lot of gear as far as like the Tom mannequins to play, to simulate casualties, and so they were transporting the Tom mannequins. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tom mannequins.
Yep, I know what it is.
Yeah, those things are pretty awesome. And so these local guys have never really seen anything, of that scale. They don't have the budget for that. So ADS, provided all these free of charge, for the event. And so, so you come into the park and all you see is a bunch of role players, rolling around on the ground with injuries. And then you see these Tom mannequins that are sitting there missing arms and legs and, injuries that we would see overseas, but that these guys weren't really necessarily exposed to. Because part of the scenario was these terrorists would come in and set IEDs throughout the park and things like that. So there's a little bit of shock value for these guys coming in. Of course, the Tom mannequins are sitting there talking to them, and because the controllers on the other end can talk through the little speakers.
Right.
And, and if you didn't treat them properly, then these things die. So
it's just crazy.
It is. The technology is amazing. It really is. So we did this exercise for the guys, and they transported the Tom mannequins all the way to the ER. My wife, she's a physician's assistant, so she was observing. So they let her ride in the back of the ambulance on the way. So they're treating them the whole way. And she said the look on the ER doctor's face when they rolled this Tom mannequin in. I mean, these guys have never seen. You're talking like an evisceration, double amputation, and these guys are not used to seeing those sorts of injuries domestically. But it was a good training exercise. So the way that kind of transformed into the K9 work, the head of security for the amusement park came up to me, and we were talking, and they said that they were looking at doing having K9 teams patrol the park. They've had a couple bomb threats at some of their area parks, and it was I'm like, well, I know a guy that I used to work with overseas. He was our kennel master. He owns a company here domestically called Dogs for Defense, and they're based out of Minnesota. They do a lot of K9 work for Mall of America, a lot of sporting events and concerts and things here domestically. And the owner's name's Dan Hughes. He used to be a Secret Service guy. He was on their K9 program for a while. Great guy. But yeah, so I introduced the two of them. They came out. He came out and did a demo for the amusement park. They loved it. And he's like, "Hey, James, you've got Ada at the house. She's still working. She's still good to go. How would you like to work for me part time? I don't have any other handlers in the area." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool, man. I've always wanted to work with dogs." So he came out and gave me a crash course on canine work, and I've been training with her on my own,
Right.
picking up tips here and there. I would train with her and the local canine guys, just picking up what I could learn. So he came out for a couple weeks and taught me how to be an actual handler, and then I went out and certified with her through the National Police Canine Association and started working at Busch Gardens on the weekends, and that's kind of how I fell into canine work. So it was I tell you, I like working with dogs way more than people. Quite honestly,
they're quite loyal and usually do what you say.
Yeah, they
Not
do.
always,
You can walk out there, and if you've had to leave them in their kennel for a while, you go out there, they're just as happy to see you as if you'd just been out there all day with them, and you don't have to worry about them stabbing you in the back. And I quite honestly can't stand people. So it's the biggest reason why I didn't go back into law enforcement when I came back from contracting is I just don't have the tolerance, especially with the crap these guys have to put up with these days.
Ooh, man, I know. I was law enforcement for a while, and I'm just not built to be a cop. Not anymore.
No, I love the training aspect behind it, and that's part of the reason why I still train with those guys and help them out whenever I can, on the training side of things. But I just I don't have the tolerance for the stupidity anymore these days.
I totally agree. So who are you working with now, canine wise?
So I'm still working with Dogs for Defense. The park has been closed for their off season, and so they're getting ready to open up actually at the end of this month. So I'll be back out there working, with my new dog that I have that I was working with this past year. Her name's Cody. She's a 4-year-old Shepherd Mal mix. She worked overseas for the Department of State. And we brought her back home. So I went through. So now I'm working with American K9 Interdiction, or AK9I, depending on what you know them as. But they kind of got their start doing they were the provider for all the dogs for the Marine Corps for their IED program. That was back in 2004.
Right.
So that's where they got their start on that. So they started a new program a little over a year ago, where they got approval through the state of Virginia to offer a canine course to veterans, and you can use your GI Bill and college fund for that. And so I had a buddy that used to work for me, my other company. He needed something a little bit closer to what we used to do overseas. He needed to be more involved, a little bit more operational. And so I found out about this course, and I sent him through it, and it was just a night and day difference. I mean, it really changed a lot of things for him. He had a TBI from injuries overseas, and struggled with a lot of the same things that a lot of guys like us, go through, having been over there. And it was just a game changer for him. I mean, he completely turned around, and now he ended up getting hired by AK9I to be an instructor out there. So he's now one of their head instructors. So I was like, I still have some GI Bill left, and I'm not doing anything, for the most part during the downtime with the park being closed. So I decided to enroll in one of their courses. So I decided to go to their 13-week course. It's an instructor trainer level course. So you basically you go out there, you use your GI Bill, it pays for the whole thing. So you go out there, you select your dog. You tell them, ahead of time what your goal is as far as the canine stuff goes. And so, I've already got an explosive detection dog at the house, so I wanted to get a narcotics dog. They paired me
because we all need a narcotics dog.
That's right. So, I found in this area especially, there's a huge need for canine, and especially in the civilian side of things.
I really think there is everywhere.
There
frankly.
is.
I mean, it's one of those things that it's one of the most underutilized tools that we have at our disposal.
It really, really is, and no pun intended, but the canine world is exploding. And especially on the explosive detection side, you know, we've got all these bombs cooking off in Texas right now. There was 3 in the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then there was another one in Delaware, you know, and then we had that guy that blew his junk off in the subway in New York City.
Yep.
And then there's I heard reports that the Vegas shooter actually had IEDs in his car, but he never made it to his car. So I've heard bits and pieces about that.
Yeah, I heard the rumors of that as well.
Yeah,
nothing confirmed, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's a huge need for canines. So just here locally, they had a big holiday event this past December, and the Hotel Marriott actually hired me to come out and sweep guests as because the way that Newport News is set up here in Virginia, they have a big event called the Holly Dazzle. It's about 40,000 people attend this event. Big, huge fountain area. They cram 40,000 people into about 4 city blocks.
Right.
And which, you know, from our eyes, that's you know, what we call a target-rich environment.
Absolutely.
And it's just, I mean, it's literally shoulder-to-shoulder people. Newport News Police Department do a hell of a job. I mean, they've been doing this for a couple of years now, so they got it down to a science. But I mean, it's still, you can only do so much to mitigate a threat, you know, to something that big. So and this was right after the Vegas incident. So Hotel Marriott reached out to Newport News PD and said, hey, can you guys, you know, we want to hire one of your canine teams. I'm like, well, we don't have the resources to support that. We can barely support our own calls for service for canine. So they said, here, call this guy. So they called me up and I went out and sat down with the guy and, you know, I'm trying to understand what he's looking for. And he's like, well, I don't want to be the next MGM Grand. I was like, hey, I respect that. I'm like, but here's what that's going to entail. And I don't know if you guys are prepared to foot that bill. Because it's hard to guarantee.
Right.
I could be one of those companies like, yeah, sure, I can guarantee you that you're not going to be the next MGM Grand, and I could charge them an astronomical rate, but that's not really how we operate. So I wanted them to have kind of a realistic expectation of what they can expect, and I think they wanted more of the visual deterrence and the visual feel good of having a K9 team out there. Oh, you know,
yeah, for sure.
You know, I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, having a K9 team out there is a huge psychological and visual deterrence.
Absolutely.
So they hired us to come out, and we were sweeping all the guests' luggage going in and out. I swept the building prior to the event, so it gave everybody a warm and fuzzy about going out there. And it's in hindsight, nothing happened, thank the Lord. But
and that's what it's about, right?
Exactly, and that's what it's about.
And you never know. I mean, you just never know.
You don't.
Not nowadays.
No, you can't take anything for granted, you know. And they didn't have any. I mean, they had the normal threats of young idiots going out there and shooting off their guns when the fireworks go off, and
right.
Oh, hey, I'm going to meet you at the fountain to fight because I think I'm hardcore, and I'm going to come out there and, you know, on social media and talk about it. And, you know, so they had those incidents. And then I stayed on after the hotel. So the hotel had me out there for like 4 hours, and then I stayed on with the local guys and just walked around the crowd with my dog. Again, just as another presence there for them. And then, you know, we had another place hired us to come out. It was the Jamestown settlement. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that. Okay,
so that whole area is one of my favorite places in the whole country, between Williamsburg, Jamestown, Yorktown.
Yeah, so much history.
Virginia Beach.
So much history.
I've spent so much time there over the years when I was in the Marine Corps, and then, you know, I love it. So
it's a great area. So the Jamestown settlement is run by a foundation called the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation, the state-funded foundation, and they used to do, or they still do, live pig slaughter as part of their reenactment for the Jamestown settlement. Well, you know, that's really, really offensive to people, apparently, somehow.
Right. Even though they'll go eat the shit out of some pork chops, right? Or bacon. But
they had some liberal left-wing vegan outfit that's based here locally. You know, it was basically threatening to blow up or plant an explosive device at the settlement. So they didn't want to be shut down.
Domestic terrorists.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy, huh?
It's pretty awesome.
So, you know, hey, it's job security. You know,
isn't that an oxymoron?
You know, it's
right.
Funny.
Right.
It's funny to me, like, you know, these you know, they talk about tolerance and peace, but then they're going to threaten to blow up a museum full of what will most likely be, you know, school age kids that are coming there on field trips and families coming to visit. And
They just get along with pigs more than they do with people, bro. Just like you with dogs, them.
Yeah. So they had me come out. It was over the Thanksgiving weekend. So they had me come out and do a sweep, and then they had us on as an on-call asset. It was interesting. But hey, it's job security for us in the K9.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's unfortunately, what the trend I've noticed as far as police departments go is they tend to focus more on the patrol aspect of K9s and the narcotics guys instead of the explosive detection dogs, because quite frankly, they don't really use them as much. So they're looking at it from a budget standpoint. So that's kind of where I think the civilian side has a bigger opportunity that we can come in and support.
Now, is there the possibility of like dual use dogs? How does that work? So, I know K9, but I don't know K9. So
you've got dual purpose dogs, which they're typically like a patrol and narcotics or patrol and explosives. You don't have a dog that does narcotics and explosives. The best way I explain it, there's two ways I explain it to people. One is if I find a bomb in your car, there's going to be a slightly different response as if I find weed in your car. So, we handle that differently. So it's,
right.
That's the first way I explain to people. The second thing is, the explosive dogs are also able to detect firearms, which in a lot of states are completely legal to have in your vehicle. So it eliminates your probable cause if the dog's trained to. It could present some issues in court if you get a smart attorney that says, well, my client had a legal firearm, and who's to say that my dog hit on the firearm and not the pound of marijuana in the back.
Got you.
So it becomes a probable cause issue at that point. Right. Well, what did the dog find to go into the car? Yeah, they screw up for everybody. So those are the two big reasons I explained. And again, like I am by no means an expert in the K9 world. I am still a novice at best. There's guys that have forgotten more than I've already learned about the K9 world, and I'm learning more by the day. So I'm on week 9, I think, week 9 of the 13-week course. So I'm still learning quite a bit, and I'm one of those guys that I never stop learning. I always learn something new every time I go to a new course.
Best way to be, man.
And it's I've noticed there's a lot of egos. There's egos everywhere we go when you're dealing with guys like us. And there's people that think they know everything there is to know about different aspects of things. So I try not to be one of those guys.
Well, those are usually the guys you want to steer clear of, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an interesting time to be in the K9 world. We had a bomb threat at Busch Gardens. They had a disgruntled employee, and he decided to post a video on social media about a pipe bomb at Busch Gardens. And so they called me out to sweep the areas that he had worked in. And, it's an interesting time. They've got a lot of big things cooking off in the K9 world. The cargo screening stuff, the TSA is pushing that, and that's going to be a big thing. And then you've got all these people that's setting off package bomb. And it'll be interesting to see what shakes out with those things going on in Texas. Is it some,
right? Is
it ISIS? Is it some idiot that's, some, right wing or left wing guy that's trying to, I think it's still too early to say, who's behind it.
Right. But, I worked in the nuclear security industry for the better part of a decade after I got out of the Army. And we used to always push. We kept trying to push because a couple of our chiefs were, 2 of them were K9 guys in the military. So we used to always push them to have us just get dogs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it never worked out. But it would have been pretty cool, and it would make a lot of sense too, especially in that environment. But
yeah. So the next big thing we're pushing, we're looking at providing K9 teams for schools. It's and I'll probably catch a lot of flack for saying this, but everybody's saying, oh, let's give veterans in schools. Let's arm veterans and put veterans in schools, and we'll make the schools safe. Okay, so let me preface this. I'm a veteran, and I love veterans, and I will do anything I can to take care of veterans. However, having said that, not every veteran is capable of being in an active shooter situation and mitigating that threat. Having been in the National Guard, especially, and the reserves, my last reserve unit, there were some squared away guys in there, but I would say probably over half of that reserve unit couldn't shoot their way out of a wet paper bag.
Freaking half of them were soup grenades. Right?
So to say that just because you're a veteran, that automatically qualifies us to be an active shooter response team.
Not, right?
No, that's just a terrible idea.
No, awful.
Yeah. So, my idea, and I'm sure I'm not it's not an original idea to me, but kind of what we're pushing is to put K9 teams in schools. We've got this program for veterans that we're giving them a legitimate skill set, a legitimate tool that they can use, and they can put these guys in schools with their K9 teams, and that's a huge, huge deterrent against an active shooter. I mean, is it going to stop everything? No, but I think they're going to think twice before they come into that school, whether they're trying to get drugs in there or whether they're trying to get a firearm in there or whatever the case may be. Because nobody wants to get bit by a crazy 80-pound Mal.
Right. Plus, it's like community. Community outreach and stuff too. I mean, there's all
exactly.
Kinds of things. Like, I remember my wife. She used to work in our local high school as a secretary, and they would bring the state police and the sheriff's department would bring their dogs in for training, just to be in that environment in the schools with chaos, and they would have them there when they would change classes and to expose the dogs to that chaos, right? And she was just like, it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal tool, and I think like you said earlier, the canines are such an underutilized asset. I mean, there's so many, these dogs can find firearms, they can find explosives. I mean, there's so many different things they can do. I mean, and there's a huge drug problem in our schools these days. And it's and the good thing about the canine is nobody knows, all right, is that a drug dog or is that a bomb dog, or which one, or where's the canine team going to be at today?
I love the bomb dogs that they have at, like, there's a couple of airports I saw, like literally, I think one of them's a Cocker Spaniel.
Oh yeah. TSA especially, they use a lot of those, the smaller size dogs and run to the airports. And
I was laughing. It was hysterical. I was like, oh my God. He was like, yeah. So this is when I was working a job. So as I was going through security, my credentials were seen and everything. And I was like, no shit, is that an explosives dog? And we had a long conversation. It was hysterical. Freaking Cocker Spaniel, bro.
Yeah. I
Like,
tell you,
you gotta be kidding me.
They're great. They are. And one of the things that as a civilian, I tend to stay away from the dual purpose dogs, because as a civilian, if my dog bites somebody, like, I'm done. That's there's no insurance that's covering that. The liability behind that is so. The dogs that I have are all single purpose detection. It's still a huge psychological deterrent because a lot of these guys, so I'll take a prime example. So
they don't know they're just a drug dog.
Exactly. They've watched an episode of Cops and saw a canine tear into somebody.
And mouths look mean, bro.
They do.
Well, they're cute as shit, but if you've seen any of them, like you just said, any of them in action, holy shit. I remember putting on the suit. It's when I was deployed to Bosnia. So this is like 99.
Yep.
We did some work where we were able to go and play the
decoy.
Play the decoy.
Yep.
And we would all run for this freaking, and I'm a pretty big dude. At that time I weighed around 220 pounds, and they'd send this freaking, like 60-pound female after me, and she'd take me down. It was holy shit. Yeah,
there's a reason they're called fur missiles.
It was awesome.
Yeah, these things are amazing, the stuff they can do. So I like the dog I work with for Dogs for Defense at the park. She's a Shepherd Mound mix, and from a distance, I mean, she looks intimidating, and it's, if you're a person that's scouting out that place for some sort of terrorist attack, or if you are a guy that's trying to sneak a gun in because he's some gangbanger, or whatever the case may be, they're going to see these dogs and like, you know what, let's go to some place that doesn't have that resource there, that doesn't have that capability. And, and I would venture to say in the civilian side of things, I would say probably 80% of it is that visual deterrence,
Absolutely.
presenting the hard target. And we could get into the capabilities of the dogs. I mean, that's, these dogs are amazing, the stuff they can do. I will say, I mean, there's so many different disciplines you can get in on the canine world. I mean, they've got cadaver dogs, they've got electronics dogs that, my buddy that I work for, he's like, yeah, I'm working with child pornography cases with the police department. And so my initial thought was, oh, he must be, tracking the suspects, or something like that. He said, no, he said, a lot of these child pornography idiots, they put all their child pornography on thumb drives, and because they're easier to hide. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'm like, so how's the dog doing? He said, well, we train the dogs to find the thumb drives. So they can send these dogs into the suspects' houses, and they find the thumb drives hidden in little voids in the wall or in outlets or wherever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's
in the shaving cream can or wherever.
Yeah, whatever the case may be, and so I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy the stuff that these dogs can accomplish. So it's I think we're on the cusp of the canine stuff, spilling over into the civilian world, and it's still it's still at its infancy stage, in my opinion, as far as the civilian aspects of canine go. But I think they've even got canines that detect bed bugs. And, they send these canines into hotels, and it's cheaper for the hotel to pay a canine team that's certified to find bed bugs instead of going in and pulling the sheets and having them all tested. They send these dogs in to see if they have bed bugs in the hotels. And it's crazy what these
amazing.
Yeah. So this veteran program, I think, is, if they decide to push this program to the schools, I mean, obviously think about how many public schools there are around just in Virginia alone, you're talking thousands and thousands of public schools. But, they could put, 5 to 10 teams in one school district and rotate them at random. And you never know where the canine team is going to be any particular day.
Yeah.
And that's a huge deterrent.
Or they could just do multiple, laps or stops throughout the day periodically.
Exactly. They could do one school in the morning, one school in the afternoon.
And in all honesty, what would that cost a school district? Yeah, I know you don't want to throw out numbers, but it'd probably be cheaper than a lot of things.
It would. So if you look at the cost it would take to take a school resource officer, and you're not even, let's not even look at the cost of training and health insurance and all that stuff for the police officer that you're going to put in there. So you say the average salary for a police officer is, let's say, $70,000 plus all of his training. How you're looking at it depends on how you look at it, and you're paying him, and that's his full-time job. Where you can take a canine team and put them in there. You can have so rough costs. I was trying to do some math, and granted, math is not my strong suit. That's why I went into the military. Right. But so we were looking at, you could take 10 teams and put them on a full-time basis in one school district, and it would cost less than $1 million for the whole year. And so you're looking at right around, I think the math was per handler, you're looking at around $90K for the entire year for one canine team. That's a certified dog,
right?
That's a handler, and that's full-time in the schools, Monday through Friday. You're talking a 40+ hour work week.
Even if you were to just take, let's say 2, so say $200K.
Yep.
For a school district that's got, say, 10 schools.
Right.
Right. That's literally doing sweeps on a school once a day. Each dog would do and I'm not saying a school every day, right. Or I'm not saying 5 schools a day. I'm saying a school or 2, but it's a random thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what we were kind of looking at is, you have, you hit one school in the morning and then you hit one school in the afternoon, and it's completely random. And then obviously you're on call if they have any sort of specific credible threats, or if they have a bomb threat. So obviously you're on call for that, where you would go in and respond. And that seems to be after the Florida shooting. There was I think in less than 6 days here in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia, they had 21 what they considered credible threats to the public schools, whether it was a shooter or whether it was somebody placing a device, or whatever the case. They had 21 credible threats. And these police canine teams, they're phenomenal guys. I train with a lot of them, but they're tapped out. They don't have the resources to be proactive and get into the schools. So they're always reactive. That's kind of where we fill the gap. And a lot of, and again, I have the utmost respect for law enforcement, but historically speaking, most of the school resource officers are guys that they've done their time on the streets and they're just looking.
Right. They're just looking for a retirement job, man.
Yeah, they're looking to
I mean, even think about it like this past weekend with the VA facility that had the triple homicide there.
Yep. The hostage thing,
the hostage situation. I mean, that's my day job, so I have to deal with the backlash of all of that, right?
Right.
And they're looking at all kinds of security stuff for VA facilities throughout the nation.
Right.
And God bless them. The VA police do the best job that they can, but again, you run into some of that the same restrictions. You've got, it's like the DOD police, as you know very well. You have all the responsibility, but none of the authority.
Right. Exactly.
So
it's that's the problem.
It's a freaking joke, unfortunately.
It's always reactive, and they never take a proactive approach to things. Let's be even the K9 teams, which I'm a huge advocate for securing our kids' schools. None of these kids should have to worry about, am I going to go to school today and get shot, or am I going to go to school today and get blown up? And it's sad that's the day and time we're living in. But if we want to peel back the layers of the onion, it's a Band-Aid solution, and they need to look. You're talking. It's and again, this is my opinion, but there's so many different reasons of why we're having these problems that we're having today. It's lack of parenting, lack of discipline, too much social media, not enough involvement from the parents, I think everybody's looking for one. We got to blame guns. The guns are the problem. Let's take away all the guns. No, it's a terrible idea. I think both sides of the house are looking for, like the conservative side of the house is, it's kids are over medicated. And, there's so many different reasons that both sides of the fence are looking to blame. And it's not one particular reason. There's a multitude of reasons as to why these things are happening. It's desensitizing our youth to, there's so many different things. There's a culture of disrespect and a culture of, lack of discipline. It's just lack of social morality. These kids would rather videotape, their peers getting into fights and beating the crap out of each other than jumping in to stop it and jumping in to help.
Yeah, for sure.
And
we had this. Actually, what's funny is we had this exact conversation on the last episode. We were talking about firearms, and that, but we were talking about the exact point that you brought up is they would rather put it out on YouTube,
right,
than to actually step up and be the person that stopped a fight.
Yeah, and you get those kids that are in Florida right now that are out protesting. Like the one kid, he decided to come up with an armband and put that armband. I don't know if you saw pictures of that guy, but he was on Bill Mayer, but he put an armband on and he looked like the Hitler Youth, and he's out there screaming,
"Yeah, right,
take away the guns."
Like the freaking brown shirts.
Yeah, and it's there's no. Unfortunately there's no one solution to this problem. There's so many different things, but of course, taking away the guns is probably the worst possible solution.
Yeah, but I love the solution that you're putting forward with the dogs, man. It's just another tool, right?
Yeah, it's another tool, and I think it'll get bipartisan support, because obviously conservatives are like, let's put more guns in the schools, give the teachers guns, and I'm still undecided on the whole. I firmly believe in everybody's right to self-defense, but to put that expectation on teachers that they're going to be the active
again,
shooter
it's like veteran stuff. It's like crazy.
Like, hey, I am all for letting these teachers carry if they are, if they are legally able to carry a concealed weapon for their defense, and if they are able to defend
qualified
themselves,
and trained and educated,
and if they're able to defend themselves and save other people in the process, then that's great. That's awesome. But to put that expectation on the teachers when they're already underpaid and overwhelmed, that they're going to be the active shooter response is foolish.
It's foolish.
It's foolish, So I think the K9 team, especially with this veteran course, if we're employing veterans and giving them a legitimate, valid tool that they can take with them, and then you get this program started, and if they can get somehow get federal funding for this, which we all know they can. It's just a matter of where their priorities are.
Yep.
And they can push this into the schools, and it's just another way to safeguard our schools.
Well, I say let's get it done.
Yeah, that's I'm all for it, man.
I'm here to help, man. So if whatever we can do to help push this initiative, the government freaking funds dumber shit. So I've seen it, as you know.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy some of the stuff that we spend money on. And then the other thing too is getting the word out about this opportunity for veterans. A lot of guys. I went to college and got my degree. I went to Regent University and did the online program they had and got my associate's degree in business. And a lot of us veterans, we get out of the military and we struggle for what we're going to do. Are we going to go to school and get a degree, and are we going to get a job in the corporate world? Or I think this is another avenue for veterans to get into. And for me, and I'm sure you as well. We have that itch. And I think guys like us will always have that itch to be connected to what we used to do overseas. And I think this kind of helps scratch that itch. Quite
Absolutely.
honestly, I'm not one to stay in an office all day and 9 to 5. And that's just, I tried the retail industry. I've tried food service. I've tried a lot of different, careers over my years. And I got to be out actively doing something. I love the training that goes along with the dogs. And, for me, it helps scratch that. And I've seen a lot of people, so we'll take it as an example. My buddy, he was struggling with TBI, struggling with, some PTSD issues, and everybody's pushing the whole service dog thing. But I think let's give the veteran a dog. It helps keep their attention. It helps give them focus and purpose, but it also gives them something that they can make money off of. And it gives them, let's not over medicate the veteran. Let's give them a usable skill set that they can take out into the civilian world, and whether or not the school program takes off. There's so many different things that these guys can get into. They can work at amusement parks, doing, explosive detection, or they can go to stadiums or concert places or whatever the case may be, and get themselves gainful employment. And, it helps. It's almost like therapy.
It is like therapy. Absolutely.
They're required to take care of this dog and train this dog on how to do all these amazing things. And it keeps them focused. We're not known for having long attention spans to begin with.
Right.
And then you add a bunch of nonsense that we had to deal with overseas. And everybody deals with their demons in a different way. But this is I've seen a lot of success stories where guys come in and they're absolute wrecks, and they go into this program and they get this dog and they get a new sense of purpose again. They get a sense of belonging to something bigger than themselves. And it's changing a lot of lives personally, and you're being able to safeguard the country, whether it's
safeguard your community.
Yeah. Whether you're going back into your local community
even if you just donated your time to whatever,
exactly.
Give it a break.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Even if some of these guys are coming in and they're 100% disabled, which they're still able to function, but they're disabled according to the VA. But these guys can come in and get these dogs, and they can go and volunteer their time somewhere.
Exactly, amazing.
There's so many different benefits for veterans on this that and it's that what I found is that nobody knows about this program. And it's if you go out and let's say that somebody off the street wanted to go to this program. The cost of the course, just the course by itself, is anywhere, depending on the length of the course you go to and which one you go to, is anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000. And a lot of places that are offering this level of training don't include the dog. So you go to this training, but then what? You don't have a dog to show for it. So with this program through AK9I, not only do you get the training, but you also get the dog, and you don't have to pay a damn thing. The VA covers all of it as long as you have enough eligible benefits.
Yeah, of course. And but then you're actually coming out with like a trade.
Exactly. You're coming out with multiple certifications, and you're coming out with a certified working dog, whether you choose explosive detection or search and rescue or narcotics.
I mean, at the very least, you could take that dog anywhere in the country, open your own business doing this as a freelance, whatever, and you're living the entrepreneurial dream.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that, we're looking to add to the course is, a crash course on how to start your own LLC. And it's crazy easy, but veterans don't know because nobody's ever showed them. Nobody's ever taken the time to invest in them. So whether these guys become a part of a bigger industry as part of, where they work for another company, and go into the school districts, or, there's a few guys that are in my class that are veterans that work for smaller police departments that don't have the budget to start their own K9 program. So they made a deal with these guys. They're going to use their VA benefits, get the dog, get the training. They're going to go back to these police departments that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. And now that police department's going to have K9 support.
Yeah, like pay the vet bill.
Yeah, they'll
right,
end up,
or whatever.
Yeah, they'll pay the insurance policy and the vet bill, and the dog becomes a police K9. And so there's so many different there's so many different benefits to this. And let's say we get this school program up and running, and the cost of training these dogs is huge, but the VA is going to cover it. So it's a win-win for everybody. You're not having to worry about training up new dogs. You're not having we can provide the labor force, and the burden of this cost is going to be spread throughout. So you've got the VA that's pushing it. You've got a lot of different things that I don't know. I think my personal opinion is I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be a good thing for veterans.
I agree. It's like one of the things that we're doing here with Cigars and Sea Stories, and then our other business that's connected is 5 Paragraph. We're really pushing trades,
right?
Because we need them, frankly. And this is just another one of those type of things that a veteran could grab a hold of. It gives them purpose. It gives them everything that they
and there's
grab onto.
And if you don't want to get into being a canine handler, you're a certified trainer, so you can train dogs from scratch to being working dogs, or you can start. There's one guy that started his own dog training business for just like people's pets.
Yeah,
so
like obedience training.
Yeah, just obedience training. So there's so many different avenues that these guys can get it, or hell, selling dogs to the federal government. I read an article about 6 months ago. There's a shortage of over 5,000 working dogs between DOD and the federal government and local law enforcement agencies. There's 5,000 dogs shortage. So there's a huge potential for people to either jump into their own work here. And it's like you said, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to go to college. All right, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to get a degree in, social studies.
Whatever.
I'm going to, whatever. Like, okay, how does that translate into dollars and provision for your family? Like, what are you going to get out of that? I'm glad that I went back and got my degree in business, but quite honestly, I could have done without it. You know what I mean? At the time, I wasn't aware of this program, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I figured, I'm an entrepreneur now. I better learn something about business. And, so now I've got a piece of paper that says, okay, hey, you got an associate's degree in business.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people, baby.
Yeah.
That's it.
A lot of people don't know what they're going to do with that. So I think that, it's like trade schools. I think that there's a lot of VA programs or VA approved programs for, becoming a welder or becoming a pilot. And I think these things are underutilized by the veteran community. I think
for sure
you can come out and get these skills and to kind of help pad their resume, so to speak, on top of what they did in the military. And so we'll see what comes out of it. I'm looking forward to finishing this course up and jumping back into. I timed it perfectly to write my last. I graduate from the course on Friday, and then that very next Saturday, Busch Gardens opens back up for their season.
Nice.
And I'll be there on the weekend.
I need some tickets to Busch Gardens. Just
yeah, it's an interesting park. I'm not a huge fan of large crowds if I'm not working. So I try to avoid all those places when I'm off.
Man.
Call me jaded, I guess you could say. But
Well, James Overton, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, man.
Awesome
it
stuff.
was
Just
fun.
let me know. Just give us the best places to find you and find out about the things that we talked about.
So the best place to go is you can find AK9I on Facebook through their Facebook page or their website ak9i.com. If you're a veteran and you're interested in it, you can actually go on there and download the course syllabus and catalog and take a look at it, see if that's what you're wanting to get into. And the owner, Paul, he's actually a Navy veteran, and he was a law enforcement guy for a while as
We
well.
won't hold that against him.
Yeah, I give him hell about that all the time. Yeah, he retired out of the Navy. Great guy. His name's Paul Rashia. You guys can contact him. He loves to talk about the course and loves to talk to veterans. So yeah, he's got a lot of big plans for AK9I. So we'll see what comes out of it. But I think it's a lot of room for potential there. So
Good stuff, man.
awesome.
I really appreciate it, and we will be in touch.
Yep, sounds good, man.
Our flag unfurled to every breeze, from dawn to setting sun.